Hello, hello. This is Mina, and you are listening to the 2K Days podcast. More and more people are realizing that business can be an extremely powerful force for good if you could just figure out your marketing. On this show, you'll hear from amazing impact entrepreneurs and learn effective new strategies to help you generate revenue and radical change with your conscience intact. Got it started. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that because everything you say, I just want to share with the entire world. But yeah, it's all you. Take it away. Again, I'm really grooving on the fuchsia. Right. Oh, it looks so good.
So I love this kind of two-way conversation. So, there's I'm going to be presenting a ton of information. And so, feel free to raise your hand, pop a question in the chat. Just stop me if things go a little bit too deep into the astrology. I'm going to try to keep it high level, like big ideas and themes, so we don't get stuck in the weeds, but I'm going to take you in the weeds just a little bit. There was something else that I really wanted to say. It'll come back to me. Okay, so let me find my, okay, will you make me a co-host, please? Because I got some slides for you. My co-host yet? Okay, present. Give me a second. Oh, thank you. Oh, I am the host now. Okay, presenter view. Here we go. Present. Is this going to work? Audience window. All right. Before we get started, right, does everybody know that we're in the full moon today? Like later on in just a few hours, we're going to have this like potent full moon. And I don't know who else has been feeling the Martian energy of this full moon. This full moon is smack dab in the middle of the Mars retrograde cycle. And so we know it's the middle of a Mars retrograde cycle when Mars is opposing the sun, just like how in a full moon phase, the moon opposes the sun. So at the time that we have our full moon, a little bit later in the day, Mars is going to be exactly conjunct the sun. And so when our emotional self, our intuitive self, represented by the moon, comes next to activating, energizing Mars, that shadow of Mars can be anger, frustration, anxiety. The highest level of that Mars is motivation, drive, determination, all of that stuff. So if you feel like raging today, permission to speak your voice, okay? Because rage is such a powerful tool that I think that a lot of us, we have been taught that rage is this ugly, shameful thing. But when we really learn how to use our voice to express the line in the sand, that we don't want people to trespass or experiences to trespass or all those things, that's how we can really start to use anger and rage in a really constructive way instead of a destructive way, which Mina has really polished and fine-tuned on how to use rage in a constructive way. So she leads by example for all of us. So, okay, I'm gonna get started now. Mina, how long do we have, just in case I can be kind of long-winded? Oh, you're on mute.
This block is up to 2 hours. I just blocked it for 90 minutes so that you can come and go as you need to, but you have time. Not everybody can stay that long, I'm sure, but you have time.
Okay. I'll try to go through as quickly as possible. So yay. So this year, I'm kind of calling, this is still like a name in process. Like I haven't really like settled on the name. If I could really pick a name, a theme for 2023, it would be unhinged. But that isn't the most, that word unhinged could really be taken in a bad, not so good way. And so what I settled upon was to crystallize your flow, because if there's one thing that I want us to remember about 2023 is that it's really a liminal year where we are being asked to unhinge. So imagine like a little like corn snake, right? If anybody has ever seen a corn snake or even any just snake like devour something that is so much more massive than it is, that it literally has to unhinge its jaw to swallow that thing that is so much bigger than it. And then it's like jiggling, it's like all of its rib cage to like bring in that little mouse down into its body to be digested. And that's what 2023 is like. Okay, so I don't want us to feel like we have to like hang on for dear life and try to have control, because this is not that kind of year. Okay, so as we dive in, my intention for you today, as I'm about to do this whole ginormous data dump, right? It might be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to do my best to inspire and inform so that you can take inspired action without totally drowning you in content. But it's a lot. I invite you to take screenshots wherever you need to take screenshots. If you want to come back to something, there'll be a way for you to sign up to get this guide as a download. So, you know, if you want to take frantic notes, do it, but you're always going to get that PDF at the end. I want you to leverage this cosmic star wisdom and these cosmic energies to make better decisions and choices in your life and your work. And of course, as change makers, you are change makers because you will not work in traditional industries. Or if you're working in traditional industries, right, you are changing things from the inside out. And so here, we're going to be looking at astrology from this place of dismantling systemic colonial systems that keep us all oppressed. I would, of course, love you to work with ease and flow in this divine timing. And that's why one of the reasons why we look at this kind of cosmic weather, this cosmic climate, is to be like, okay, well, if there's a Mercury retrograde coming up, I'm going to pad my schedule with that. Right? I'm not going to like put a gazillion things scheduled every minute schedule, because, well, you would be working against the divine timing of the cosmos. And of course, we are going to leverage this cosmic astrology. I remember the thing that I wanted to point back to Mina was that one of the reasons like that Mina and I really started connecting and jiving over astrology is because she started calling astrology like the proto-science, the root of all science. And when we think about like, oh, is astrology based in science or is just a myth? If we remember, the most ancient astrologers were actually ancient astronomers. They were masterful scientists, masterful mathematicians. And there is, if you believe in energy and frequency and magnetics, of course, astrology is scientific. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm not here to change anybody's belief if they don't believe in astrology. So, my guiding principles, this information is prescriptive, not predictive. I'm never going to tell you this is going to happen, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to tell you what the energy is ripe for so you can make choices for yourself on how you want to take action in that energy. My hope is to be inspirational and insightful, and using astrology from a leadership and a change-making lens. So this is not just your woo-woo soul purpose, kind of astrology. This is inspired, actionable for our leadership and our change-making. The reason why we look ahead is to, of course, see the big picture, embrace the changes without fear, and be strategic with how we work, live, and restore. Because as change makers, I hope that you also are opting out of the hustle culture where you are working. When we start to work within the seasons of astrology, just like Mother Nature, there are times to work, there are times to play, there are times to rest, and there are times to restore. And so to live a whole life, we integrate all of those different seasons. So today, we are going to start with reflecting. Reflecting is actually my 2023 word of the year. My 2022 was regenerative. If you had a word for 2022, I would love to hear it in the chat. But we're going to reflect on some of the big themes that happened this year, just so you can kind of like connect the dots between what was happening in your life and work with these big events. Then we're going to look at the timeline for 2023 big picture. And then we're going to drill in to the different cosmic meetups, the massive planetary shifts, meaning the planets that are some big players like moving out of a sign for over 20 years. We're going to look at the weird lunations. The eclipse seasons are wacky for 2023. We'll look at the different retrogrades. Of course, we have 4 Mercury retrogrades, and then we'll go by the different monthly themes just for an overview. So Kaz, Rise, Mina, Convergence, Shira, for well-being. Yes, well-being forever, right? Like wholeness forever. You must have a lot of Virgo in you, maybe. And Michelle, your one word was a phrase. It's both. Yes, it is both. It's never either or. We are living on these like inner and outer paths. And that's why I love astrology so much, because astrology shows us the inner path, the way towards healing and integrating and self-development, while astrology also shows us the outer path of success and amplification and leadership. So I love that, Michelle, that idea of it's both. And so reflection for 2023 for me reminds me that, hey, it's time to stop and take a beat, see what's going on. So I know there's a lot of familiar faces in here, and there's some people that are completely new. And so my name is Leslie Tagorda. I'm a lover of astrology, podcast host. I've written a couple of books, and I come from a brand design background. I'm also continue to be a professional classical clarinetist. I am a Hawaiian-born Filipino Jew, a third career astrologer, where my first career comes in from classical music. That was my absolute first career. I have a master's degree in classical music, and then went into branding, and then went into astrology, focused on the intersection of identity and how we present ourselves in our work. But this journey from oppressed, institutionalized classical music, elite classical music, through branding, through astrology, is really rooted in exploring my own identity crisis and my inner healing of worthiness. Because all I'd ever heard growing up was, you probably find some of these very familiar, that I wasn't enough. I'm not Hawaiian enough because I'm not Hawaiian blooded. I'm not white enough because I am half Filipino. I'm not Asian enough because my Filipino family called me the whitey. Although if you're seeing me on video, I am very much brown skinned. I am not thin enough, smart enough, good enough, all of the enoughs. And I've had enough. So I started weaving in astrology in 2018 and creating my own language of astrology and how harmony applies with astrology and the way we present ourselves in the world, what we need to reframe, what we need to dismantle, and unlearn societal's rules of how we should see ourselves as successful as leaders. So today, my mission is to be a spiritual and strategic teacher, helping change makers and entrepreneurs like you turn your wounds into wisdom so that you can contribute that wisdom to become the luminary leader you are born to be. And my purpose that has found me is to innovate the language of astrology as a movement in leveraging brand and leadership development, combining a unique skill set of branding, business, and astrology in what I call the Astrobrand method. I am Gemini rising. I love teaching. I am Aquarius sun. I love doing things differently. So that's me in a nutshell. So I just wanted to give you a little, just who the heck is Leslie Tagorda? So we're gonna fast rewind to 2020, because 2020 is like seared in our collective soul. And astrologically, for decades before 2020 even happened, astrologers were looking at what the heck was going to happen in 2020. Right? Because it was a social upheaval. It put into, oh yeah, Mina, did you have something you wanted to add?
No? Oh no, I was just emphatically agreeing.
Oh, okay. Like, yes. So there were so many different planetary meetups, like once in 800 year kind of meetups that happened all at once, coalescing in the summer of 2020. And if you dare go back to the summer of 2020, when all the shit was happening, really 2020, 2021, 2022, we are all living the ripple effects, like a big earthquake, there are those aftershocks, right? 2021, a big aftershock. 2022, these are just like really detailed, so I'm not going to like dive into like all of the details, but we are finally finishing up the aftershock of breaking down your boxes from all of the shit that we've had in 2020. And so if we look back at this year, like who here had like a wonderful, easy October? Or was October like just the most fucking hard, stressful time ever? And what I mean by like, maybe there wasn't anything like overtly like terrible happening, but it was like the weight of the world cast both. Yes, and affirming, yes, it's yes, to Michelle's, it's both. We're really done with these kinds of aftershocks, you know, finally 3 years later of that 2020. And now we're not quite ready for a new chapter to begin. That new chapter is going to really start to open up in 2024. And so 2023, what is this liminal space? That's why I'm calling it unhinged, because we're at this place in 2023. So here's 2023. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm going to go into detail. Can you guys see all the little details in there? I'm going to go into detail of all the things that are happening in 2023, but how things are still really unhinged. So we have, at a nutshell, Saturn entering Pisces. Saturn moves signs every 3 years. So it's moving into Pisces in March. Pluto changes signs every 20-something years. Pluto moves into Aquarius also in March. Okay, just these two things, we could write an entire like encyclopedia for 2023, but we're not done yet. Okay. The nodes, these are, and I'll talk about what each of these individual energies mean. The nodes change signs. Pluto keeps on vacillating between Capricorn and Aquarius. Jupiter squares off with Pluto. All of these things meaning that this snake of 2023 swallowed a giant mouse. And it's going to take a while for it to rehinge its jaw and move that mouse back through its digestive system. That's when the next chapter is really going to start. So this year, we're kind of floating, but we're really being asked to get comfortable with uncertainty, even more so. Get comfortable with prioritizing our own bliss, our own flow. Get comfortable with our own spiritual wisdom. Get comfortable with things getting a little bit messy, right? Anger, just like messiness, are two things that our society absolutely abhors, because it's uncontrollable. But sometimes when you make a mess, this is where the magic happens. For anybody who has a child or has raised children or pets or animals, you're like neck deep in messes. But you see that this is where the joy and the passion and the playfulness comes through. Ah, yes, Michelle, exploring my natal nodes aligning with this year's nodal transits. Yeah, so you're having a nodal return. That sounds right, a nodal return. So basically, in a nutshell, we have 2 full Mercury retrograde cycles at the very end of 2022, and that bookends us into 2023. We have a Mercury retrograde, and then at the end of the year, we have another one of those bookends. So you can see it as we are having 4 Mercury retrogrades, or we're only having 2 full Mercury retrogrades, because there's Mercury retrogrades that are threading the year ends together. We have a rare Venus retrograde. Venus is the planet, and I'll talk more specifically about this, but she doesn't go retrograde very often, just from our perspective here on Earth. Of course, these planets are not going backwards. They just appear to be going backwards in the sky from our perspective on the Earth because of each of our different orbits, the velocity of our orbits around the sun. And then we are currently in this Mars retrograde. As I mentioned, today is the midway point of our Mars retrograde, where it's a full illumination of your energy. Mars represents energy. When our energy is blocked, that turns into fear and anger. When our energy is allowed to flow, that turns into motivation. So all on the same spectrum of Mars. Then we, of course, have our other outer planet retrogrades. We have these every year. And then we have 2 eclipse cycles. Eclipses always happen in pairs, a solar and a lunar eclipse, and they happen about 6 months apart. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail. So this is kind of the overview of the year. Feel free to take a screenshot. Of course, you'll get that PDF later. So let's take a look at what the heck happened in 2022. So in 2022, at the very beginning of 2022, the nodes entered Taurus and Scorpio. And so the nodes are energetic hotspots on the elliptical, and I should have a graphic here, but they're not planetary energies. Basically, the nodes are that meeting point where the sun and the moon meet on the ecliptic. And these nodes, we have a north node sitting across the south node. And basically, some people, like in Indian astrology, Vedic astrology, they'll call this like the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, where our north node, our collective north node, is where we are stretching into. And so this year, the last 2 years, 19 months, the nodes change signs, polarities every 19 months. Over this past year, we've been really learning to tap into our collective peace. We've been learning how to tap into more environmental and resource-driven things because of that Taurus earthbound energy. We need to prioritize sustainability. And that south node in Scorpio and its shadows are about hidden truths and secrets. It's about control, right? And we can see finally, just last week, finally the IRS released Trump's taxes, a complete bringing up the shadows and secrets. And so when we can think about that south node of Scorpio, when we are reflecting back on 2022, whether in the world or in your own life, what secrets and untruths were revealed to you? What have you now learned to trust? And I was talking about the Taurus North Node with Uranus about this theme of rematriation in 2022, where we are starting to take quantum leaps into caring for the land and returning land back to its original stewards. Not repatriation, but rematriation, to nourish the land. And this has only just begun. So I'm curious, what, for any of you, have you seen any secrets revealed? Even like just your inner shames or truths come up that just have to be, extracted, eliminated, taken out. So don't think too hard. If something comes up, that is the right answer. Oh, Mina, Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's not messy, it's educational, 100%. So the next thing, Jupiter went through Aries earlier this year, and then it went into retrograde. So it's now currently in Pisces, but it's going to be hopping back into Aries again later this year. And over 2023, Jupiter is going to speed right through Aries. Jupiter normally takes about a year in each sign. And so it dipped into Aries, it went backwards into Pisces, now it's going into Aries. And Jupiter is our planet of expansion, growth, exceeding our expectations. And so as Jupiter explored Aries this year, how has your purpose found you, right? Because I think it's a myth for people to say, like, I'm going to go look for my purpose, I'm going to live for my purpose. It's through doing and taking committed, inspired action that your purpose finds you, right? I see Kaz nodding. Yes. Oh yeah, Aries. Michelle, like Jupiter's going to like zoom all through that Aries. And so Mina has that last 29 degrees of Aries too. And so, and what purposeful leadership did you step into? Right. So this is really super, super exciting. Last year, it was like one of the only planets that changed signs. And so this was kind of a big deal for 2022. Now, Neptune and Pisces and Jupiter met in Pisces this last year. And to me, this was the theme of 2022, which was spiritual visionary expansion. And so as a spiritual entrepreneur, this was really big for me. And I wonder for those of us who are not as like just overtly spiritual, how did your own belief system come to the fore this year? How did it inform you? How did it help you grow? How did you harness your power of vision and spiritual awareness this year? So this was like that big thing. Of course, you know, like in my little windows on Instagram and social media, you know, like everybody and their mother wants to become some kind of like tarot reading spiritual coach right now. And I'm here for it. I love it. That more and more people are opening up into the divine to help them make decisions. And so, but of course, I live in my own bubble. So I wonder how you all have seen this. Oh, Shira, a former rabbi. I love that. I love that so much. Finding a new spiritual path and awareness has been quite potent for you. I'm super curious, Shira, like as a former rabbi, I know that there's quite a movement that I've noticed to bring in more feminism into Judaism, just because it's been so overtly patriarchal. I'm so curious about your experience with your...
I mean, feminism in Judaism is not new to me. I was one of the first women rabbis ordained in the conservative movement. So we were about feminism, 30 years ago. So that's not new news. And I'm grounded in that tradition still, but moving sort of beyond it, through it, on this path of finding what feels like truth to me.
Beautiful. I'm so glad that it's like you're like a pioneer, right, in like the Jewish feminism, because it's this new generation that is finding it for this first time that I've been seeing it really come to the fore and bringing kind of the new ideas of rituals and bringing this new divine feminine into Judaism. That's so beautiful. So maybe you have a reawakening of your calling to be some kind of spiritual leader in that place, under your own change-making rules. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Michelle, the universe and my ancestors, will you include ancestral healing? Yes. And so I see that, Michelle, for me, like just, as I'm trying to compartmentalize, I see that ancestral healing part of that rematriation process, that remothering, that tapping back into that ancestral lineage that, is almost always matriarchal. Right, almost always. I mean, there's patriarchal lineages too that work really well, that still support us. But to me, that kind of falls under that rematriation. So beautiful. Okay, so sounds like it was a spiritually expansive year for most of us. And this is the thing that I was talking about that came into the peak in October. Saturn, the planet of contraction, of limits, of boundaries, of architecting, of hierarchical like systems. And Uranus, which is like the polar opposite of Saturn, which is like, quantum leaps of electrical, just like change, revolutionary. These two planets squaring off, I started talking about breaking down your boxes. This started in 2021 all the way through 2022. And so this added a lot of stress and tension in this year, but it was because we'd left too much garbage out, right? We couldn't fill the garbage containers because we did not break down our boxes. Right? So this reflection question, I didn't edit this, excuse me. This is not the right reflection question. So how did the stress test of this year show you where you needed to revolutionize your boundaries? I got to write that down because I got to update that question. Give me a second to write that down. Where did the stress test of this year revolutionize boundaries? So, stress test, it showed me a lot. I really learned that I have only so much energy and so much fucks to give, and that there are people that just don't deserve my fucks. Even when it's like your mother, that is like a lot of times it's your mother. And even in my work life, getting really, really, really clear on the offers that I want to bring into the world that really align with the capacity that I want to give. And so really potent information learning from these stress tests. Shira says, I asked myself a series of questions. How do I want to face adversity? Yes. And overall, with calm confidence, it has alleviated stress, and I've been able to much more stay out of the gravitational pull of stress. Right. And I want to reflect back on why that is so potent, Shira, because it's like, we're consciously opting out of what society tells us to face. We don't have to do that. We're change makers. We can opt out of anything. Right. So I hear myself like saying opt out a lot this year. So maybe this Saturn square off with Uranus is like, what are we opting out of? Because we just don't want to take that tension. Yes, or be the change. And sometimes being the change is like just block it out. Saying it's not my problem anymore. Sometimes it is our problem. We're accountable for the problems that we have created to clean up those messes, but sometimes it's not our problem. So let's take a look at 2023. Now, if you're if you know how to read your natal chart and you're super interested, these degrees that I put on the ends of these retrograde cycles, and I'll have them bigger and more detailed so you can see them more. What I always do at the beginning of the year is I mark these degrees as just little points on my natal chart, because if there are things that are aligned, like if I have like any natal planets at any of these degrees, I know that these degrees that I've listed here are like little pressure points. They're like little acupuncture points where channels of energy are going to be shifted. Sometimes, like when you're if anybody's had any acupuncture and sometimes they get a really sensitive spot, it's like, oh, like, hey, what the heck have you been doing? Right? And so some of these points are going to be a little more prickly than others. But it's really just good to kind of see the year ahead, what's happening. So that's just kind of my advice to you for each of those different energies, those degree points. So one of the biggest things that is happening in terms of a planetary meetup, there's not too many planetary meetups that we have this year. There's a lot of planets shifting into different signs, but there are not many outer planet meetups. And not so much the inner planet meetups, like those happen so quickly, but these outer planet meetups, they have a buildup. They're like a wave, just exactly like this chart. So I use this website called Archetypal Explorer, and they print out these beautiful charts that shows the ebbs and the flows of different planetary meetups. And the biggest planetary meetup that we have this year that comes to an exact meeting point is Jupiter squaring off with Pluto, where our ideologies are challenged. Okay. And so earlier I was saying that I'm not here to change anybody's minds, but I suspect in May, somebody's going to challenge me about my own belief systems. And sometimes these challenges are really good, right? Because if there's no conflict, if there's no challenge, if there's no tension, change doesn't happen. Change doesn't happen when everything is just hunky-dory and easy and in flow. And so we need these kind of triggers, these sparks, to challenge us to explain our ideologies, or to prove our ideologies, or to, to have a good argument, whether or not you choose to disagree, or you choose to find common ground. Something will always be triggered and change will happen. And Jupiter, the planet of expansion, Jupiter, the planet of growth, of ideals, of purpose, of vision, of morality, the golden rule, the planet of gratitude, squares off with Pluto, whose process is really to, Pluto at its shadow can be really like impulsive, like OCD impulsive. That's not the right word. Just like really go deep into things, wants to reveal everything, can be really, really, really intense. And sometimes it's this idea of death and rebirth. And so I just want you to put this on your calendar and see how this actually expresses for you in your life and your work. Michelle says, I've been exploring different ways to have hard conversations. Yeah. And, not all of us are created to have hard conversations. Some of us are meant to teach like-minded people. So if you have a lot of Gemini, right? But then if you also have a lot of Aries, and I know Michelle has a Gemini rising with all of her Aries energies. If you have a lot of Aries energies, well, that's the ones where we're going to go our own way, no matter what, right? And so just to know, having those kinds of ideas in your mind, like, well, what is the purpose? What is the result I would like to have from having a hard conversation? Is it just to ruffle some feathers, or is there some other kind of outcome? So that's what I would consider, Michelle, if that was an option. The other energy that's happening, which is a little less, going back to sorry, this is something I forgot to talk about. Jupiter and Pluto met up in 2020. Okay, so this was one of the meetups that caused like a new cycle of ideologies, right? And so now that Jupiter has moved past Pluto 3.5 years later, now we're having to prove and challenge our own ideologies to make sure that these are ideologies that we still want to stick. And when I say ideologies, they could be philosophies, they could be like visions, they could be all of those different things. Now, Jupiter also met up with Saturn in 2020, right? Because like, remember 2020 was just like this monolith of a year. And so now that Jupiter and Saturn have moved off that point, now that they're meeting again in a sextile, now they have opportunities. That new cycle of air, sharing information, social currency now has more opportunities. Saturn is for the long term, it's for maturity, it's for commitment, it's for authority and expertise. Saturn isn't just a damp rag, it actually wants you to succeed. And Jupiter, because it's so optimistic, it can often bite off more than it can chew. When they work together in a sextile, meaning just a little bit of effort, just a little bit of effort. So this theme that I have here is opportunities to do more with less. So this peaks in the middle of summer, right before solstice, summer solstice for us in the Northern Hemisphere. But you can see how the energies start building up in May, they decline again, and then they'll start ramping up again in 2024. Okay, so it's beautiful to see this kind of like long-term timeline of how these energies work together. Okay, and this is the preview. What's on the horizon? So as Mina and I were like sharing some information, I was like, 2024, 2024, 2024. This is what we're preparing for. So I'm just kind of giving you like a far off look into the future. When Jupiter and Uranus meet for a new cycle, I am calling this earthly technical progress, right? Everything that we think about resources and commerce is going to change. This is not Bitcoin. This is not like new different. This is actually energy as commerce. You can see this happening right now in like Ukraine, where Russia is bombing and destroying their sustainable resource energy structure. They don't want Ukraine to have energy. And people who work in sustainable energy are seeing these new kinds of battles happening and how we have to protect our energy infrastructure. Something is on the horizon. A new cycle for this will begin in 2024. Every time Jupiter and Uranus meet up in the world and the collective, massive technological peaks happen, whether this was like the invention of the internet or the invention of the airplane or space travel, always coincide with Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. So
I'm going to jump in here
also
and share with everybody that this specific thing is one of the things that we're building up to inside the project as well. And so the coursework and designs that I'm creating right now and the testing that we'll be doing over the next year and a half to quantify the value of our changed usage of the market is for this point. Right around April 2024, we will be having a live event to showcase the success that we've had so far, to come out with a very public outcry for others to adopt the business and connection methods that we have been utilizing inside the project. So put it on your calendars as well, and look at this as just a really important period in the course of the next 2,000 days. And funnily, April of this year is when this started.
Beautiful. I love that. April of this year. What was happening in April of this year? Jupiter, Neptune.
There's a mass conjunction on the first day of the 2,000 days project, like 4 planets or something like that. And like everything was connected in some way. Total accident, by the way, but
not really an accident, divine intervention.
Yeah, exactly. Something. Yeah, exactly.
You had your blessed stars in Judaism, Mazel Tov. Literally blessed stars. But so the reason why this graph is here as you look to April of 2024 with that new conjunction is you can see this little blip of it already starting in the fall of this coming year. So when we have these little blips, these foreshadow what's coming up. Right? One of the reasons why we study astrology is to start to recognize the symbols and the signs of patterns of signatures that repeat themselves in different ways over and over and over again. Okay, so just take a note of that.
You're listening to the 2K Days podcast for rebel business leaders who want to generate more revenue and radical change. If you're loving what you're hearing, be sure to like this episode and subscribe for more.
Okay, so let's get into these big energy shifts because there's some big things that are happening. So I'm looking at these outer planets that, take their time to move around the chart. And next time I do this, I wish I should have drawn actual more charts in case you don't know what a natal chart looks like or what the elliptical looks like and how these planets are traveling around the solar system. What I've done here is, you see like if you're like scrolling through Instagram and you go to like Spirit Daughter and they're like, oh, it's a full moon, do this, don't do this. And I'm like, okay, well, those are fun and easy. How can I innovate that? Because I can't do things that people already done. Like it bothers me. So you're never going to see like a moon journal from me. You're never going to see like an astrology journal from me because it's been done. There's people who do it so wonderfully, but I'm going to give you some ideas to dismantle, like don't do that, quit doing that, and to reframe these things that we have to opt into to do things differently. And so as Jupiter speeds through Aries and it lands down in Taurus, this is coming on May 17th, 2023. So like literally like Jupiter is like stepping fast on the gas right now. It's going to go through all of Aries in 5 months. Like that is so fast. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Kaz. Like, so as Jupiter is speeding through for all of our Aries people with Michelle and for Mina, whatever Jupiter touches, it likes to just add a little glow up. Okay. And so Jupiter is not going to be hanging around in Aries. So, you know, expect your glow up to be like a flash in the pan. So savor it. Right. And as it like touches down into Taurus, Taurus now is about embodiment. It's about feeling peace in your body. It's an earth sign. So it's very practical and grounded. It's about abundant resources. So I always like, when I think of Taurus, I always think about like a nice charcuterie board sitting on the deck, enjoying the sun on my bare feet, enjoying a glass of wine. It's decadent like that. Like you don't want to do that all the time, but when you get to do that, you want to savor that, right? That Taurus is savoring energy. It's sustainable and it's steadfast, meaning Taurus doesn't like to change, but you know what? Just like Ferdinand the Bull, when that bee stings its ass, it's moving. I always think of Ferdinand the Bull as Taurus, okay? And Jupiter now expands that. And so during this, the last time, so again, if we want to think about cycles, imagine back to June 2011 to June, like 2011 to 2012. What was going on in your life at that time? Now, I don't remember, so I'm going to have to go back to my calendar. I remember that being where I got into yoga. I learned how to be in my body a little bit more. I learned that I carried all of my sadness in my hips. Very Jupiter and Taurus, now that I think about that. So maybe this year I'll take care of my hips again. But so I want you to start maximizing your resources. What I mean by that is your money, your energy, and your land. We've been hearing all about the economists talking about the Great Recession that's coming, that's been coming, that all this inflation because the, you know, government try to put off the recession. But we do need to have some checks and balances. So in your own resources, not just the money in your bank, but the things that you have, your own energy, start to maximize those. Start to also see your energy as renewable commerce. This starts that conversation that we have, or continues that conversation that we had last time. Optimize your life and business for sustainability. There's no quick anything next year. Sustainability first and foremost, and be grateful for getting to go slow, right? Sometimes we get disappointed that things don't go viral or that our communities don't expand as fast as we want them, or our business doesn't grow as fast as we want, or we don't lose weight as fast as we want. Like all these things about like fast. Be grateful for going slow and steady progress. Okay, so dismantle, resist the urge to overeat, overspend, waste resources, like turn off the water, turn off the electricity, resist the urge to bite off more than you can chew. That's specifically for my own medicine. Resist the urge to take risks that are not sustainable, and resist the urge to get into any quick get rich or any other kind of quick schemes. So yes, Shara, that the reframe for going slow and steady, it is, we don't give, in our hustle culture, we don't give that enough credit, right? We're up and out of that hustle culture. Okay, this is the big one. Saturn enters Pisces. Saturn generally stays in a sign for about 3 years. And it entered Aquarius at the very tail end of 2020. When it met up with Jupiter at Aquarius of 0 degrees, right around Christmas of 2020. If you remember, like that bright double star right around Christmas time in 2020, that was Saturn and Jupiter conjuncting each other, where my astrology mentor is calling this spiritual wisdom. And I can't let go of that. I'm just like, and I don't want to use it because she's using it. And that's like my need to innovate. So I'm like, how can I innovate spiritual wisdom when it's so good? Spiritual maturity. And so I changed this to like crystallize or prioritize your flow, because Saturn, again, its job is to focus and create limits so that we commit to our own success, our own expertise, our own authority. And by committing, we cut everything out. So both Saturn and Mars are really good at creating boundaries. Okay. And so Saturn's process is to crystallize like a diamond, turning coal into a diamond, getting rid of all of those impurities. And Pisces is such an expansive energy. You can't really crystallize or contain Pisces energy. So it's a little bit of an oxymoron for spiritual maturity or crystallizing your flow, because just by process, flow has to flow, right? So Pisces energy is transcendent. It is one love. It is, if we're talking about like the monotheist, this is like the holy, like God, one love energy. Okay. I don't know what EMPT, I think that's a little typo there, but this is really about how do we create more ease and flow. Oh, empathy. That's what I was supposed to say. Empathy, compassion. That's why Pisces people are just like, you can just feel the pulse of the world. And so Saturn is going to enter Pisces, and it's going to stay in there all the way through February 2026. This cutoff between May 24th and September in 2025, that cutoff is when Saturn moves a little bit into Aries, and then it's going to come back into Pisces. Okay. And so if you are born right around, this is going to be pretty intense for the luminaries with Saturn returns in early degrees of Pisces. So we're looking at people who were born in 1993 and 94, and we're also looking for those that are born in like the 60s. I think it's 64. 63, 64. Well, you both will be, and I don't think anybody is here in their second Saturn returns and the first Saturn returns. And if you do have Pisces energy in those early degrees of Pisces, as Saturn sits on top of your sun or your moon or your rising, Saturn is going to feel like a little bit of the blues. It almost has like a depressive quality. But how we reframe that, it's not that you're being depressed, you're pausing and going inward to reflect. You're committing to your own spirituality and your emotional well-being. You're crystallizing the wisdom of your compassion and your empathy. Again, one of these emotional labors that we don't value in our society that we're going to uplift. We're setting emotional boundaries. And we're prioritizing, again, your flow, right? So let go of being busy, let go of committing out of duty or obligation, let go of being responsible for others people's wisdom, emotions, accountability, right? Unless they're your children or your clients, or you've made a promise to hold them accountable, let go of being responsible for others. And stop putting people's priorities before your own. Put on your face mask first. Kaz, you mentioned March 1st. Did I miss something? No. Oh, got it. Okay, got it. So we have some celebrities with Saturn in Pisces. On the people who are approaching 30, we have Ariana Grande, we have Harry Styles, and we have Justin Bieber. But the ones that I have the most focus on are the ones like Kurt Cobain, Keanu Reeves, and then third Saturn return, Dalai Lama. And what's really fascinating for me about Kurt Cobain, Keanu Reeves, and Dalai Lama is just like the emotional pain that these people have had to endure, and just the pure gift that they have then left on this earth for us to enjoy. And so the reason why I bring that up is not because I want any of us to endure emotional pain, but I want us to appreciate just the beauty and the wisdom that comes from that kind of holding on to emotions. These people have such a gigantic capacity for empathy, right? Obviously, Kurt Cobain succumbed to his great capacity, but people like Keanu Reeves and the Dalai Lama still sustain. Okay. Yes, Shira, letting go of being responsible for your adult children. You did your job. They're their own people now. Permission. And then the last one, this is really big. Two more. Pluto enters Aquarius. Regenerate your revolution. Now, to put this into perspective, over the last 20 years, Pluto has been in Capricorn. Okay. And when a planet like Pluto, who's so far out and takes like 280 something years to go around the sky, right? To go around the sun. Like none of us are going to live through having a Pluto return, right? The United States just had a Pluto return. If you're interested in learning more about the United States Pluto return, Chris Brennan has an amazing podcast called the Astrology Podcast. He goes way in depth about those things. But when Pluto is vacillating between the last degree of a sign and the first degree of the sign, there is like shifts and shakeups, because the last degree of a sign, that 29 degree mark, is generally a completion phase, right? Mina has Aries at 29 degrees, her sun. Like, why is she a fire starter? Because she's done it many, many, many lifetimes, if you choose to see it in that way. And I do choose to see this that way. That's why she's so good at it, because it's her thing. She's done it a gazillion times. And so as Pluto is sitting on that last degree of 29 degrees of Capricorn, Capricorn is about systems, governmental system, organizational systems, institutionalized systems, all of those kinds of different capitalistic systems, corporations. And Pluto drills down and it transforms it by killing it off and rebirthing. It's not just Pluto, just like the death and the dying. Pluto is a complete process of death and rebirth. And so as we move into Aquarius, at that 0 degrees of Aquarius, something new is being sparked in Aquarius. Revolution, change, science, humanity, technicality. It's the outlier. It's the rebel, right? This is being sparked to transform. So choosing to start a revolution in yourself and dismantling all of the ways that we've oppressed ourselves, right? How we continue to keep a colonized mindset, reframing your emotional deep dives, bringing up your shames of differences, bringing up all of those taboos and bringing them to light so that you never have to hide these deepest shames anymore. Reforming your business and your life based on equity, on the future of humanity, and empower your own individuality, equality, and community. It is definitely, we're moving into a more equitable social sphere, which is, I think, all of the change we've been here to really call in. Okay, so the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, there was a lot of tumult in the world. 1778 to 1798, it was a time of like mass revolution, global revolution, right? Not just in the States, all across the globe. So if we're going to make assumptions, the revolution starts within you, right? And so what revolution do you want to create? So nodes move into Aries and Libra. It sounds like Michelle is having a nodal return where her nodes are also in Aries and Libra. So we're moving into collective interdependence. Aries and Libra, when we take a look at Aries, Aries is about the me, it's about the self, it's about my own independence. And Libra is about the we, relationship, building bridges, diplomacy. And when the nodes are in Aries Libra, we are integrating both of these. And so I'm calling this interdependence, right? Because we can be responsible for ourselves, but we still live in community. How do we become individual contributors while still being part of that community? And so we're stretching into the potential of Aries, and we're breaking free of past patterns of Libra. Okay, so we're being, the past patterns of Libra could be like people pleasing, putting other people's priorities over mine, keeping the peace to keep the peace, right? Where, like there's this idea of like change doesn't happen with diplomacy sometimes because people are too busy keeping the peace. How can we change that so it's not a fight? So, oh, Michelle's having a reverse nodal return. Got it. We're reframing individuality, autonomy, self-direction, self-motivation, and a new collective phase where we can be interdependent, okay, with fairness and equity. Okay, we don't want to lose that fairness and equity. Okay, I know we're going on and on. So we made it through most of the meat and potatoes of the chart. So we'll take a look at just some of the new moons. What's mostly important to know that I don't have this really illustrated here is that generally when I look at a chart of a new moon, the new moon has relationships to other planets. And one of the reasons why I chose the subtitle Unhinged for 2023 is that when we start to look at the charts of these new moons in 2023, the moon is never hinged to anything else except the sun. I was looking at all of these charts and going, wow, these are like the wackiest new moons I've seen in a long time. And the wackiest eclipse seasons. So eclipses generally happen in polar opposites, but the eclipses this year don't happen in polar opposites. So let me fast forward. So, go back here. So take a look. We're in April, we're going to have a ring of fire. It's going to be beautiful. I don't know if we can see it here in the United States. I know the one in October we can see in California. But this ring of fire eclipse on the 19th in Aries. But the paired full moon eclipse in April, or actually just shortly after in May, is in Scorpio. That is not a polar opposite. So we have these two oppositions being activated, still Taurus, Scorpio, and now we also have these Aries, Libra. And I'm still discerning and processing what this means. I was talking to my astrology mentor about this because I've never seen anything like this, and she was really curious too. She had some insight, but it hasn't yet really completely landed for me. So when it does, I'll make sure I update you. So TBD. TBD. This full moon eclipse, partial eclipse, sorry. This total solar eclipse here on October 14th, this is the one I'm really looking forward to. So us in the States, we'll be able to see this. So mark your calendar. It's going to be early in the morning. It's going to be a total solar eclipse. So the moon will completely cover the sun. It's going to be really beautiful. 12 new moons, 13 full moons. And personal planet retrogrades. So a retrograde cycle is your reminder to What I mean by is whatever the process of that planet, you're redoing that process. So we're super familiar with Mercury, and Mercury's process is to think, to express itself, to communicate. So oftentimes Mercury retrograde will be to rethink, but a retrograde cycle is made up of 5 different phases. Okay. The enter shadow zone, where it's a foreshadowing, where it stops to change direction, where it's a pressure point. That's why we have those degrees, so you can find those little acupuncture pressure points. The midpoint, like a full moon illumination. when it changes direction from backwards to forwards, another pressure point, and then when it leaves the shadow zone, right? So we can create just these like hero's journeys just based on a retrograde cycle. I'll leave it at that because I feel like maybe we've filled our cup already and it's kind of overflowing. But we have this Mercury retrograde that happens on December 29th of this year. That's going to bring us into the next year. So you get to rethink your goals. So if you're somebody who loves to do your goal planning during the end of the year, this is going to be even much more reflective because you're going to have more time to rethink and really recommit to your goals, your priorities, your authority, not others. Okay. The next Mercury retrograde in Taurus, we have all of these earthy retrogrades. So, oops, I'm sorry, I see some mistakes. There's those themes didn't get changed. So I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna go forward to explain each one of those. So Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, rethinking your goals. That's what I talked about, that one. Then we have our Taurus one, reorganizing your resources. So this will be a great time to replan your money, your budgets, your energy, your people resources, all of the different things that feed your life. Okay. And I'll talk about these if you follow me on Instagram. I'll talk about these things in much more detail. Mercury retrograde in Virgo, another earth sign, reevaluate your practices, right? Virgo, about wholeness, about process, about iteration, not about analysis paralysis, okay? So we'll be reevaluating your own practices. And then the last one of the year that brings us back into Sagittarius, recommitting your vision. Right? Because of the unhinged year where we're kind of like untethered in this liminal place, right? Things, of course, are going to shift. And then this Venus retrograde. This is where I want to spend a little bit more time because Venus is our ability to connect to the people and resources that we need in our lives to thrive. It's our energy to be receptive. It's our energy to attract, right? All the good things, money, love, people, friends, right? And Venus will be going through heart-centered Leo at the time of her retrograde. And Venus only spends 9% of her orbit in retrograde. So she goes in reverse not very often, like every 2 years or so. Okay, we get Mars retrogrades and Mercury retrogrades way more often. And so this time in Venus in our business lives, in our work and our change-making lives now is attraction, but it's about values. What do we value? So when we have our Venus retrograde in Leo, we're reevaluating your creativity, your passion, your joy, your pleasure, your play. And so we're really making a lot of room for that in our work lives next year. Okay, I'm just going to go through these really quickly. You'll get these just in the PDF, so you can refer back to them. Don't worry about that. January, you're going to be redirecting your impact. We have Mars retrograding ending, Mercury retrograding ending, and Uranus retrograding ending. So we're starting to move forward after looking back for so long. So we're going to be moving direct movement. February, kind of a quiet month. There's no planets that are changing directions. We have Sun, Venus, and Mercury moving into different signs. It's going to feel mostly easeful because March. While we don't have any retrogrades in March, look at all of the planets that are moving signs. This is the mouse. Okay, this is the snake eating the mouse. This is March. Okay, so the snake is activating its digestive system. It's activating its jaw. It is a time of new beginnings. Okay, so March, all of March. just circle March in your calendar, make lots of space for that. In April, we're going to be appreciating our wounds. We have some Chiron aspects in there that are very exciting that I don't have listed in here. But it's healing, it's alchemizing, and it's full of possibilities when we really do see our wounds as gifts. May, expanding your peace. Jupiter then goes into Taurus. We have the eclipse season ending here. In April, again, more wounds coming up. We have more Chiron themes coming up. I love Chiron's my new best friend. More healing and alchemizing. Oh, wait, I went the wrong way. Sorry. May, June. Here we go. Up leveling your voice in Gemini season. Okay. In July, cultivating your self-love with Cancer season. The nodes will be entering Aries Libra here. August, reevaluating your practice because of that Virgo Mercury retrograde. Practicing your values. September, things seem to kind of like be steady, like no planets except the sun change signs. Of course, the moon is whipping through all of them, so we don't even track the moon that way, but only one planet changes signs in September. So this is going to be like a kind of like towards the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of calmness that allow us to regroup. October, trusting your own peace for Scorpio season. November, re-energizing your purpose with a Sagittarius season. And then we end the year recommitting to your vision, where things start all over again. So I wonder if we have any questions. I know that this is a lot of information. I hope I didn't overwhelm. Thank you, Kaz. Wondering if y'all have any questions about just what's up ahead for us. Or if we just need kind of some room to process and digest because we just ate a giant mouse.
This is a lot to consolidate. So if you don't mind taking a minute to talk a little bit about what you're offering to help keep people on track over the coming year.
Yes. So let's go to that. Where is that? So the easiest way to keep track, actually, let me forward to the screen. No, not that one. So there is a guide that you can get. It is not this guide. Hold on a second. Let me find it again. This is the first time I'm using the slides. Here we go, this slide. So if you want the consolidation, a report, it's not done yet in PDF, but if you sign up, as soon as it's done, I'll send that to you. So head on over to starpower.com/2K days. Just for your people, Mina. Of course, I have my podcast. I'll be delivering this masterclass a few more times in different groups and in also my own community. So if you want to catch this again, it'll shift and evolve just like things do. And if you want to get on to my business Starcast, I send a monthly digest every month along with other Astro brand kind of ideas throughout the month. This is my newsletter, but I do aim to offer so much Astro insight, and this is absolutely free. Oh, thank you, Mina. And and that's for the link that you put together is for my new community. Is that okay to share about my new community? Our communities are different, but they're intersections. I have a brand new community that doors close on solstice, so we're almost done closing, and we start on January 23rd on the new moon lunar new year of Aquarius, and this is a culmination of everything, all of my greatest gifts, where we are coming together to learn astrology, to heal, do the inner work, as well as the outer work of our brand and leadership expression. Just like Mina's community is full of change makers, but where it differs is I focus on astrology. So it comes with an astrology library like just right off the bat, you open it up, it has all of like my best things in there. And what I'm super excited about is my monthly meetup. So just like in Mina's group, we'll be meeting up for lunar rituals, as well as Q&A, star hours, where I do speed readings, and then quarterly intensives, where each quarter I'll be delivering a 4-week astrology intensive, which are really life and business changing. I've heard that so often from the people that go through. And on top of just kind of the circle level, the community level, I also have mentorship levels. So if you want to work one-on-one with me, Mina, we worked together this last year at a mentorship level with new moon readings and astrobrand readings and Boxer access, all of that. It's just one of the ways that I can grow with you and help you and support you throughout your year. So it's just been an absolute pleasure. So if you're interested in connecting with the circle, Amina did drop in her link there for the circle. There's a lot of details. I won't bother you with the details. If you have questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through any of this. Yes, so Michelle, if you want the PDF, yes, please head on over to starpower.com/2K days. We are almost done with converting everything into the PDF. And so as soon as that is available, you will get it. Yes, I'm so glad. Yes, Kaz, what's your question?
Yeah, so let me know if this is like the right space for this, but even in the conversational space that we've had today with this, which I'm so excited for next year and having that support and working with you one-on-one as well as being in circle. In this space now, I'm very much a planner. And I am creating a lot more space for next year. I would show you guys, but I don't think you guys are ready for my visual planner. Mina wasn't ready either when I showed it to her. There's a lot of colors on my next year's forecast. What are some ways that we can use what you're sharing with us today to impact what we're planning for next year? I literally have my entire year planned, and I'd love to put a layer of all of this, even though I know we'll chat more about it next year as well. Some of my things is I'm hosting retreats and things like that, and so I'm just trying to make sure it's aligned.
Oh, wonderful. Such a wonderful question, right? So one of the things that what I shared today is the mundane astrology, the collective astrology. Like every single person on earth is going to be impacted by these collective energy shifts. And of course, our own personal astrology really impacts your own specific seasons. I'll be teaching that in celestial cycles and how to harmonize that. But how to apply this information to your planning is that you can like already start putting in those Mercury retrogrades, right? And designing your curriculum and your offers to be in accordance with that, right? So if the Mercury retrograde in Virgo is about rethinking and reorganizing your processes, like if you're offering something in your communities around systems, like operational systems, that would be such a wonderful way to maximize that energy and to work intentionally with the cosmos, right? Does that make sense? Right? In the summertime with that Leo Venus retrograde, this would, if your retreat is more about play as balancing out like the work hard, play hard, that would be a wonderful time to reintegrate your values, find your values, and like create your work play life according to those values and your creativity. So those are like some really like concrete connections about how to start planning your year ahead with what we have ahead of us. Does that support your question? Beautiful. Thank you, Kaz. Awesome. Any other questions? All right. Well, I had just a wonderful time. You know,
I have one quick question. Quick question.
Yes.
What are you most looking forward to? Like what energy cycle? What are you most looking forward to in the coming year?
Oof. That is a good question. I'm very Jupiterian. So I love Jupiter. but I also am very Saturnian. I was trying to think, I practice this also, right? I was looking back at my natal chart back in like 93, 94, when Saturn was in Pisces. And I was like, what the heck was happening in my life at that time? Because I was just like, ooh, this is some really hard shit I was going through back then. But I didn't have the insight as to how to really harness that information. So actually this year, I'm really looking forward to Saturn moving into Pisces, because I'm much more mature. I have a better like grasp on things, and I'm going to be able to really turn this into success instead of letting it like drop down. So I'm actually looking forward to Saturn moving into Pisces, even though there's a lot of people that may be afraid of Saturn. I think this is going to be great. So what a great question. Of all these things, Mina, what are you looking most forward to?
I like Jupiter. Always pushes me into places that I'm not used to. And I love to go where I don't know.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I kind of mentioned, and I wish I could remember the astrologer that I learned this from, but they started looking at Jupiter not just from growth and expansion, but exceeding your own expectations. Meaning half the time we're not dreaming big enough for ourselves. And wherever Jupiter is showing us where we need to exceed our expectations. And so I love that about you, Mina. Yes, to Jupiter. Yeah, and of course, like Jupiter is an easy planet to follow, right? Because like mostly Jupiter is optimistic and jovial and really abundant. But sometimes we can bite off more than we can chew. We can overspend, we can overdo. And so Saturn helps us keep us in check. Awesome. Oh yeah, Shira. You're on mute.
No, I was just thanking you. Honestly,
Oh.
this was amazing. I am not grounded in astrology at all, and this was like super, super insightful and helpful. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And I've just started really exploring like Judaism and astrology, but they're really integrated. There are so many connections that Judaism has with astrology, and that is something that's one of my my ancestral things that I need to start exploring even more deeply.
Thank you. That makes me curious. Thank you.
Well, how do you say like the women's groups, those new moon groups? Hadash?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not connected now, but for years, I mean, we've had the new moon, we say Rosh Chodesh.
Okay, that's how you
Rosh
say it.
Chodesh, right? Is always observed as a time of like a new year every month, a new beginning. Yeah. And there have been, I mean, for the past 30 years, like women's groups that have met on that day. So that's continuation and evolution of something that's been present.
Well, what's super significant for me, and if I may share, is that my toe into astrology started with new moon rituals, not having any idea that this whole tradition existed. Like this is before like the internet like exploded with like new moon, full moon kind of rituals. And a girlfriend and I would just get together and we would do these new moon rituals. And little did I know that I was, upholding a tradition of my ancestors. And so it has a beautiful connection for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Oh, I will research more, learn more, explore. Thank you.
I love it. You're welcome. All right. This was so fun. I can just talk about astrology all day, so I'll stay here if you have more questions. Oh, you're welcome, Cass. Oh, Michelle popped off.
If nobody else has a question, I just want to thank you and tell you, I mean, everybody here knows because they hear it every week. I'm so grateful for all of the work that's getting done and all of the ways that we're focused on creating significant change by changing the way that we think and the way that we do, instead of just wasting our time on demands from the powerful. And that's definitely one thing that you embody in so many ways. I look up to you so much. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me and sharing your space with your amazing community. This has been so wonderful.
All right, come back absolutely anytime. Everybody, you know how grateful I am for all of you and for all of your work. I will see you inside the project, and we have office hours tomorrow.
Bye, everyone. Happy
Bye.
Halloween.
Thank you for listening to the 2K Days podcast. This episode was brought to you by the 2K Days Project, an international coalition of business leaders building a better world. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe. And for even more detailed strategies and tools, you're invited to join our email newsletter at www.2kdaysproject.com.